I've been working in the IT industry for over 20 years. For those of us with any gray in the hair or beards like I have, I was around for the Y2K bug. I've got to see technology grow in a number of different ways over the past couple decades. Um, I've also had the wonderful experience of working on what I consider both sides of the fence. I have worked as an IT administrator, a network administrator for companies, for governments, and I've also crossed that fence and um, worked in IT sales and IT engineering, um, things along that nature, where I was actually talking to companies trying to buy solutions or concepts that I had designed. So I have a little bit of experience in this matter. Currently, I am the IT director at a local manufacturing firm in Monticello, Indiana, where I work side by side with Mr. Schulte. And with all of that in mind, I'd like to kind of talk a little bit today about hackers and how we ourselves are helping them take down some of our companies. I'm going to talk a little bit about ransomware, about email schemes, about what can happen, and about a number of different things and some things that we can do to make their lives harder and ours easier, and some of the consequences for not doing so. Just like any IT guy, I'm going to follow it up with a couple stories from my past to kind of help everybody chuckle there at the end. So, before we get started, I know looking at yellow screens of PowerPoints with type on them is no one's idea of a fun time for the next 30, 40 minutes. So I did include some images to kind of liven things up and make things look pretty. Just so that everyone's aware, those images came from Adobe stock. We're going to see watermarks on some of them. I don't want to get in trouble for violating any copyrights. So I just want to thank them for letting me use their images and for helping me in this presentation. So without further ado, let's get started. And I'd like to kind of talk about the current threat that we're facing today. And the number one thing that I think most of us as organizations or members in an organization are facing is ransomware. And according to the CISA, which is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, that's a mouthful. Ransomware is a form of malware designed to encrypt files on a device, rendering any files and the systems that rely on them unusable. Malicious actors then demand ransom in exchange for decryption. And that's a wonderful definition to go right along with that wonderful name that they have. And in full disclosure, even though that's a government agency, and even though I've been working in the IT field for over 20 years, that is the first time I have ever seen that name, which is when I was researching data for this presentation, which lets you know just how much work we have to do as a people to get that cybersecurity information out there. But basically, the point of this is, what is ransomware? Basically, ransomware is a piece of software that finds its way into your network, onto your computer, into your business systems, with the idea that it is going to find other computers, other business systems that it's connected to, and encrypt the data on there, making it not usable. And then when you go to figure out what's wrong, oftentimes you will find a note in those files, which is a ransom note, telling you that the person that installed that software on your computer will give you all of your files back if you will just pay them in cryptocurrency at a specified address, and then hopefully you will get the information that you need back to continue your business. Sometimes this can be low-level stuff, old pictures, old files that we don't really care about. In bad instances, it can be the heart of our business systems. It can be our CRM package. It could be our ERP program. It can be our financial accounting package or our payroll system. It can be any number of those things that get encrypted and rendered completely useless unless we pay that ransom. So, something that's kind of concerning to all of the IT geeks like me is we're seeing a rise in these attacks lately. Computer Weekly recently reported that in the first half of 2021, there was a 93% increase in ransomware attacks than in the same period in the previous year. And a lot of the talking heads on TV, a lot of people out there want to wonder, why do we see a rise in these hacking instances? Meanwhile, all the IT guys out there probably already know. And it's for three main reasons. One, we pay the ransom. Last year alone, $350 billion was paid to ransomware attacks. I know many countries around the world, the US in particular, has the stance that we do not negotiate with terrorists because once you negotiate with a terrorist, the terrorist knows you're always going to negotiate. We have no such rule and no such recourse when it comes to cybersecurity. So we are a fat turkey just waiting for them to come after. They know that we'll pay. They know when they hit us that our security is weak. We're going to pay, and we're going to pay over and over again. And that's been evident by the 350 billion just last year. The second thing, and one of the things that I'm really going to talk about today is it's easy. This isn't rocket science. It's not hard. It's not threatening. It's really easy to get ransomware into an organization. We're going to talk about different ways that it can happen. And in the end, it's just a numbers game. If I'm a hacker, I can install ransomware in hundreds of thousands of computers at the click of a button. And I just wait for those ransom payments to start coming in. And last, and kind of importantly in today's shaping world, is there's little to no consequences for cyber criminals out there. Specifically, when I talk about little to no consequences, I'm talking about foreign countries out there that have very specific or strange policies on cyber criminals. And they're not really strange. They're what we're called safe haven laws. And I hated to use an old term there, but it was the best one I could think of that my grandfather used to say to me, you don't do certain things where you sleep and eat. Safe haven laws are laws that say, if you're a cyber criminal, let's take Russia, for instance. If you're a cyber criminal in Russia, we will not come after you, this being the Russian government. We will not come after you. We will not pursue you. We will not investigate you. We will not detain you. We will not impede you in any way, so long as you do not attack Russia's security. So long as you do not attack Russian computers, you can do cyber attacks all day long throughout the rest of the world. And if we look, the top 5 countries that have these safe haven laws are Russia, China, Brazil, Nigeria, and Vietnam, meaning cyber criminals in those organizations or have computing power in those organizations don't ever have to worry about being prosecuted, pursued, or investigated. Personally, I always get a sadistic smile on my face when I see Russia and China. They are probably the 2 biggest cybersecurity threats that we have, both on a personal, business, and governmental level. But that's why there's little to no consequences out there for the cyber thieves. What I want to spend a little bit of time talking about is how we make their jobs easy, how we make cyber criminals have a cakewalk when they want to get to us. And the first one, and probably the worst, is social media. And I hate to burst anybody's bubbles here, but there's a great phrase in social media when we talk about social media platforms. And that is if you are not paying to use the software, then you are what the software company is selling. And when I look at companies like Facebook and Instagram, social media platforms like that are free for anybody to use, it doesn't take long for me to dig deep in there and realize what they're actually doing is selling my information to advertisers and marketers. What they are doing is helping create what we consider a digital profile of myself that they can then take to other companies and say, hey, Sean O'Mara loves fly fishing. He'd be a great person to advertise for your new fly fishing line or your new fly fishing catalog or your new waders or whatever. And it's really easy to do that because on those social media platforms, we're saying where we work. We're saying who our friends are, where we like to eat, what our hobbies are, when we worked out last, how many miles we ran, all of that stuff. And even though those social media platforms give that information or sell that information to marketing firms, there's nothing to stop the hackers from getting that information as well, which means that digital profile of who we are, what we like to do, is out there on the internet for the hackers to just eat up and look at. And that's going to become important a little bit later as we look into this. The other thing that we do, and I am a huge, I should say I fall by the wayside on this one enormously. Most of us only use 1 or 2 email accounts. Me personally, and shame on me, I have one email account for work and one email account for my personal life. And today, everything funnels into those email accounts. When I go sign up at my favorite store, I go to Target, I go to Best Buy, I go to Kohl's, anything like that, and they have a rewards program, they're asking me for my email address. And if they're not asking me for my email address, they're asking me for my phone number, which is easily linked to my email address on social media. So basically, I am putting all of my digital information out there on the internet in one of two buckets. I have one bucket for work and one bucket for personal life, meaning I only have two vaults that hackers can get access to find out just about everything there is to find out about my life. I put down a couple examples there. I recently bought a house. When you buy a house, they want to know your email address. Um, like I referenced before we got in here, I've been having a little bit of a sore throat the last couple of days. I went to check in to create an appointment at my doctor's office, wanted my email address. So that email address becomes this key, becomes this bucket, becomes this filing cabinet of everything we do in our digital life. And one of my favorite ways, and I do this as well, that we make the hacker's job easy, is we brag. We love to brag on social media. I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, have gotten those emails from LinkedIn or those messages from LinkedIn saying, hey, your friend Joe Blow at company XYZ is celebrating his 5-year anniversary as the CFO of the company. Congratulate him. Send him a congratulatory message. Well, how did LinkedIn know that he was the CFO of that company? It's because Joe Blow went in and typed it in. We love to go to LinkedIn. We love to go to Instagram. We love to go to Facebook and say, hey, I got a new job. Hey, I got promoted to this position. Hey, I'm on vacation. That's the one I love most. Why people still today post that they're on vacation and let all the thieves and robbers know that they're not at their house is still a baffle to me. But I like to brag on social media, and I like people to think that my grass is greener than theirs. We all do it, we all fall prey to it, and that's just helping those hackers get an idea of who we are, what we like to do, and what our life is like. And probably the worst is our email signatures. Um, again, I am guilty of this as well as everyone else. My title is in my email signature. When I send someone an email, it says right there, I am the IT director. It gives all of my contact information right there and basically lets that person know exactly how important I am or how important I think I am when they're reading that email. As we talk a little bit later about the hacks, we're going to see how that information is exactly what the hackers want to see. And last but not least, one thing that we all love talking about are passwords. Passwords are the bane of our existence now, and understandably so. Many, many, many years ago, um, I used to use one password for every account. And it only took me once of getting burned by that by realizing I needed a separate password, a separate complex password for every account that I ever created, because otherwise, using that same password could give one person access to all of my accounts. Um, and, I get this. I understand why this is tough. My fiance hates passwords. Anytime she signs up for a new service and asks her for a password, I know she can hear me just yelling in the back of her mind to create something new, to create something unique. But the problem is, for a lot of us, at that point when we're at the kiosk, when we're at the computer terminal at Kohl's or wherever, and we're creating that new account and it's asking us for the password, we get pressured. We're under, a bind. We feel embarrassed, and we create a password that we know will remember you later because we used it years ago. Well, unfortunately, because we used it before, it's out there. It's out there on the dark web, and it makes the hacker's job easier. So we have to get in the habit of creating unique, complex passwords, and unfortunately, there's no way to do that without using password managers, which is kind of a whole nother topic. But creating those simple, easy to remember passwords is just another way we make the hacker's job easier. Now, I want to take a couple minutes and kind of talk about who hackers target and why. And basically, they target everyone. That's the quick and easy answer. Back in the day, they used to target specific people. They would target the CFO. They would target the CEO. They would target the people that they knew had control of money or had control of computer resources, and no one else really had to worry. Today, that has all changed. Today, hackers target everyone. And they do so because they're going to use data mining to get whatever information they need. And I'm going to talk about data mining in the next slide or so. But the idea here is this idea of 6 degrees of separation. I don't know, the average age of everybody on this call, but when I was in college, we used to play a game called the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. And the idea behind it was you could take any actor in any movie and through 6 other actors in 6 other movies, land on a movie that starred Kevin Bacon. And it's just a fun way to play 6 degrees of separation. The concept being that any person in the world is separated from any other person in the world by 6 other people. And data mining and this idea of targeting everyone with our hacks just exposes that. And what we do, or what the hackers do, I shouldn't say we, what the hackers do is they go after email accounts. They want to get into email accounts. They want to get as much information as they can out of email accounts. They want to cross-reference that with all the information that they see out there on the dark web, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And they use all of that to just get money quickly, either through ransomware, by getting you to install software in your computer, getting you to accidentally install software in your computer network, or by simply just getting you to give them money. That's all they want. I'm going to say that there are hackers out there that will go after intellectual property. There are the hackers out there that actually want to steal something specific from your business. That is a completely different security risk and a completely different thing to worry about. That is a head-to-head fight and confrontation. What we are talking about are those common cyber criminals out there and making their jobs a little bit tougher. So, this idea of data mining. Let's start off by talking about email accounts. If I am a hacker and I am hacking corporation XYZ, the first step is I just want access to someone's email in corporation XYZ. I don't care who it is. Even if it's a brand new receptionist, I don't care. The reason is, if we look at our company emails, there's a number of things that most companies do. The first thing that they do is they have a company-wide or global address book tied to those emails, which means once I have access to an email, I can pull up an address book of every employee's email address, their name, their title, and their phone extension. The other thing I can do is once I have that address book, if I've hit somebody that's been in the company for a while, I don't know about you guys, a lot of my users are horrible about deleting emails. If they don't delete those emails, it's very easy for me to go into that inbox, go into that archive, and see years worth of email conversations. And once I start looking at those email conversations, I'm going to start seeing email signatures. I'm going to start seeing who the purchasing manager is. I'm going to start seeing what types of things the purchasing manager talks about, the HR manager, the CFO. I'm going to start to see all of those conversations, and I'm going to be able to feed those all into a database and start doing data mining on them. Now, what do I mean by data mining? Well, there is this thing out there on the internet that we call the dark web. And what the dark web is it's a black market for personal information. I don't know how many people remember when Target got hacked years ago and their entire client database was downloaded. What that meant was people's emails, their passwords, their credit card information, their phone numbers, their addresses, everything that they had given to Target, including their purchase history, was tied to those databases and available to be bought on the dark web. these breaches have not stopped. We saw Equifax get breached not long ago. We hear all over and over again. I think I saw today that T-Mobile got breached today. And once they get breached, all this personal information goes out on the dark web, which if I'm a hacker, I can get access to. And now I can start looking to say, hey, I've got a CFO in company XYZ that has this email address, this name, and this position. Do I have anybody like that on the dark web? Oh, look, I do. And I have passwords that they used to use. I can now use those passwords to try to access this information. I see they have these social media accounts. I can try to access those. I can now start opening these different avenues of attack using all of this personal information that I now have just because I breached someone's email in company XYZ and tied that to the information I had on the dark web. So with all of that, what we see is we can now start creating this dark digital profile of someone in our corporation. We can get an idea of who they are, what their passwords are, what they like to do, what they don't like to do, what they do on their social media accounts, so on and so forth. We could even see their purchase history if we wanted to. Which then takes us to this new level of attack, which is we call targeted attacks or spear phishing. Now, that first attack was phishing because we just threw a bunch of stuff out there and waited for someone with an email account in company XYZ to hook us. Now that we've got that hook and we can see, and I'll use myself as an example, now we've got Sean O'Mara. He's the IT director of company XYZ. And I'm now looking at the dark web and I'm saying, hey, Sean O'Mara one time bought this magazine for sailboating. So I'm looking through Sean O'Mara's emails and I see, hey, Sean O'Mara talks to Joe Blow a lot about sailing. So now I'm going to send an email to Sean looking like it comes from Joe Blow and says, hey, I just found this sailing magazine you should check out. Click this link. That's what we call a spear phishing attack or a targeted attack because that is not looking at everyone in my organization. That is a direct attack on me because they know my position and they're hoping to get some crucial piece of information from me. Inevitably, what will happen is when I click that link, when I download that file, it'll either ask me for a username and password, hoping that it can link that password to some other account that I'm using someplace else, or it'll download a file to my computer, which will install ransomware on my computer and start encrypting the file systems on my computer and the other computers in my organization. A couple things happen at that point, though. The minute I click on that link, the minute I try to open that file, even if I realize what's happening and stop right afterwards, I've just told that hacker that I'm the type of person that does that. And I've now just increased my risk level with them. Some things that we kind of see when we see these targeted attacks. I'm sorry, like I just explained, hey, I just saw this great article, click this link, check it out. And they're referencing some type of article that they know you would have interest in. My favorite that I see sometimes, actually my last two are favorites, they'll target the accounts payable department and they'll start sending them emails that look like they're coming from vendors and saying, hey, if you pay your last invoice, which they can see because they have access to the accounts payable email accounts, if you click this link and pay that outstanding invoice, I'll give you a 45% discount on it. And when you click the link and pay the invoice, it's going to the hackers, not the vendor. And probably one of the ones I really love is I've seen payroll departments and our HR department get emails saying, hey, I'm Joe Blow and I just moved. Could you please forward my next check to this address? And those are all targeted attacks using information that seems legitimate to people that have control over that. Those are spear phishing attacks. So now I want to spend a little bit of time talking about why the IT department is a pain. Because we all know the IT department is a pain. And the first reason that I want to point out is because really, who are you going to call? When you get strange emails, when you can't open files, when the system goes down because things are encrypted, or when your password won't work for some strange reason, who do you call? Generally, most people call their IT department. They're not calling the police. They're not calling the FBI. They're not calling the security guard. Even though a crime is taking place, even though there's a breach in cybersecurity, we call the IT department. And the IT department knows exactly how to solve this issue. And unfortunately, that's taking the computer away from everybody. But that just doesn't work. So the IT department goes to everybody and tries to strengthen security. We say, stop using your work emails for personal business. I don't know how many times I got to beat this up on everyone. Get as many email addresses as you can. Use them for different reasons. They're free, but don't use your work email to buy stuff off of Amazon. Don't put your passwords on Post-it notes on your monitor. I still see that one today, and it baffles me. Um, my favorite, my favorite is pick up the phone and call. I don't know why we have stopped doing this today. I really don't. I think it just might be a matter of my age. But I will frequently get emails. Now, mind you, I'm getting emails. People are forwarding me emails saying, hey, I just received this strange email from Joe Blow. Do you think I should open it? And my first response is usually, when you called Joe Blow, what did they say? Oh, well, I didn't call Joe Blow. That is the quickest and easiest way that we can avoid a cybersecurity threat. When we get a strange email, when we get an email that seems out of place, pick up the phone, call the person on the other end and say, hey, did you mean to send this to me? One of my favorite stories, and salespeople in particular are just wonderful about this. I've worked with a number of different sales departments, and no matter which department I'm working with when it comes to sales, they always think that when someone sends them a random email that says PO attached for order, even if they've never talked to that person before, they've just closed a deal that they haven't been working on. Sales guys are the worst. They think that deals are just going to drop into their laps. Well, one day on my break, I decided I'm going to walk around the plant that I'm working at to try to get my steps in for the day. And as I'm doing it, my phone rings, and it's a sales guy. And he says, hey, I got this email. It says that the order is attached. I think it's legitimate, but every time I go to open it up, it's asking me for a username and password, and my username and password isn't working. So I quickly pause the guy and I say, well, did you call the person and verify that they sent you the email? Well, no, I didn't. Okay, please call that person and ask, did you mean to send me this email? He agrees to do that. I hang up the phone. About 5-10 minutes later, he calls me back. Hey, I talked to the person. They said they meant to send it. I still can't get into this. All right, I'm on my way. So I'm looking over this person's shoulder, and I'm looking at probably the worst constructed email that I've ever seen. Everything about this email is screaming at me, this is not legitimate. But the person just told me they called the person, they talked to him. So I say, okay, click the link. It takes them to this horrible website. And I'm looking at this going, this cannot be a corporate website. But the guy proceeds to type in a username and password he frequently uses. When that doesn't work, he types in another one. Before I stop him and I say, wait a minute, you talked to this person and they said they meant to send this email. Yeah. You picked up the phone, called them, and talked to them. Well, no, I emailed them. And there we found the problem. The hackers had access to the person's email and was replying to emails as people were saying, did you mean to send this? The hackers are typing back, yes, please open it immediately. When we picked up the phone and called the person, they said, oh no, my IT department is working on that right now. I've been hacked. Number one thing we can do when we see suspicious emails, pick up the phone and make that phone call. And probably the next thing is just quit clicking on links and attachments. I know this one's tough. It's tough for me sometimes. Someone sends me an email that looks interesting, and I so often want to click on that. I want to open it up. I want to break from my work day. But unless I am expecting something from someone, I should not be opening files or attachments. Not unless it's pertinent to something that I'm working on or I'm expecting it from someone. Otherwise, it can just lead to trouble. Um, One thing I always kind of like to point out to everyone, remember we talked about emails being those buckets. I, for instance, have one personal email account. One thing a lot of people don't realize, is let's just beat up on Amazon for a second. My personal Amazon account is linked to my personal email address. And if I forget my Amazon password and I go to Amazon and say, hey, I forgot my password, they're sending a link to reset my password to my email, which means if a hacker gets access to my personal email, they can get access to my Amazon account by simply going to Amazon, typing in my email address, saying forgot password, wait for that new link to come in, click it, and then they create a new password locking me out of Amazon. That's a really easy way to take care of my personal account. Unfortunately, the same thing happens with work accounts. It's just a work email address, not a personal email address. So once someone gets access to an email account, they get access to your accounts, they can lock you out of your accounts, they get access to that company directory, all of that fun stuff, which is why security in all of this is extremely important. Now, I want to talk about what we consider multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication is a huge pain in the butt. I'm not going to lie. We've rolled this out, or I've rolled this out in several different organizations, several different times. Anytime I pull people into a room and turn this on for them, I see them looking at me with just utter disdain. But really quick, what multi-factor authentication is, it's a quick and powerful solution. And as one of my colleagues points it out, multi-factor or two-factor is basically one factor is something that you know, and the second factor is something that you have. Something that you know is really easy, your username and password. That's really easy, and that's really easy for a hacker to get access to. Something that you have, however, could be your phone, could be your iPad. Some companies even issue little keychains that have a digital number that constantly rotates on them that we call a security token. Something that you have is something that you possess that only you should be possessing. And then multi-factor authentication, what that does is when you log in with your username and password, the place that you're logging into says, hey, I see you're logging in from a new place, from a new computer. Please just verify this is you by typing in the code that I'm sending to your phone, by typing into the code that you see on your digital token, by just typing in that code based on something that you have to just verify that this is you. I think we've all seen this, or hopefully all of us have seen this with something like Amazon. I don't mean to beat up on them all day, but on my Amazon account, it requires two-factor authentication. If I log in from a new device that they haven't seen before, they send a text message to my phone, and I have to type the digits or type the code that they send me into the terminal that I'm using, into the computer that I'm using to just verify that it's me, to show that I know my password and I have access to that thing that I possess. When I do this, it lets them know it's me. What's more important is when a hacker does this. In this same instance, if we just take email, for example, and say that we have multi-factor authentication established on our email, what we will see is if a hacker goes to log into our email, they're going to get the prompt that says, please enter the code that we just sent to your phone. Well, they don't have the phone, you have the phone, which means you're going to get a code and you didn't request one, which should be sending warning bells off in your head that someone is trying to access your email account and your next call should be to the IT department. The other thing it's going to do is it's going to let the hackers know, whoa, don't mess with Joe Blow. They've got multi-factor authentication. There are easier fish out there to catch. Let's go after those. And it's going to create a log for your IT department to show, hey, someone was just trying to access Susie Smith's computer with multi-factor authentication and they didn't have the code. We should probably keep an eye on what's going on. Multi-factor authentication is the quickest and easiest way to stop hackers in their tracks because they will not have access to your phone. They won't have access to that token, and they cannot get access to your accounts once you have enabled multi-factor authentication. So I'm kind of getting into the end of the presentation here. I just want to tell a few quick stories to give an idea of how some of this stuff works, and then we'll wrap it up. And if anybody has any questions, I'll quickly disengage and drop off the call so that you can't ask me and you can talk about it. In any case, that was a joke. I want to talk about a few just case studies that I've encountered as I've worked. One of my favorite stories, and unfortunately, I'm going to say that all of these are my favorite stories, but one of my favorite stories is I worked in an organization where a high level manager, and we're talking top of the line management, loved to buy things on Amazon. And he loved to use his work account to do so. And he was one of those Amazon buyers that the minute he bought it, he wanted to know how long he was going to have to wait until it showed up at his doorstep. And he loved watching those tracking maps, so that he could see how close it was to his door. Um, so one day I get a phone call from him. And he basically says, "Hey, Sean, I just bought something off of Amazon. DHL is sending me tracking information. I'm logging into their site. I can't log in. I want to see where my package is." And as I begrudgingly walk to his office, I go in there and I'm like, "Okay, let's look at this." And he shows me a very DHL looking email with a tracking link. And he clicks on the tracking link, takes him to a DHL website. I'm sorry, a DHL looking website where he's typing in his username and password. It didn't work. He quickly looks at me and says, "Well, I only use about 3 passwords," and tries to type in another one. And as he's typing in his third one, I'm starting to notice that something is not right. And as we go back and look at his email, I see it's not actually coming from DHL.com. This is a hacking email that is coming from someplace else. And when I look at the website, it is not going to DHL.com. It is going to some other website. And then it dawns on me that Amazon does not use DHL for shipping. And I start asking him, "What makes you think this is your Amazon package?" "Well, it showed up in my email 10 minutes after I placed the buy now button." Well, we quickly learned that, first of all, he had been hacked. He had typed in his username and password into a website, and then we learned that those 3 passwords he used everywhere, across his personal accounts, across his business accounts, everywhere. And we spent the next week working one-on-one with this person, finding all of their accounts, personal and business, teaching him how to use a password manager, and changing all of his passwords to unique passwords because he just gave the hackers everything they needed to access every account he had, including his work accounts. Next story I'd like to tell you really quick, and I think I've only got 2, so we're almost done. Um, I worked at a company where the payroll manager, unbeknownst to the IT department, was having issues with their personal Amazon account and Netflix account. Sure, we've all seen those before. You get emails from Amazon or Netflix saying, "Hey, someone's trying to log in from another device. Hey, we think your password might be compromised. Hey, did you order this?" So on and so forth. Well, our payroll manager was going through all of this at home and not telling her IT department, which I can understand. It can be somewhat embarrassing. You don't want to burden your IT department, but we're going to quickly see why this is important to tell your IT department. Because the next day, she starts getting strange emails at work. And as she's getting the strange emails, she corners me on my way out the door to a business lunch. Says, "Hey, Sean, I'm seeing these strange emails today. I wonder if you can send someone to take a look at it." So I send one of my top IT guys. I'm not at my business lunch for 20 minutes, and he's calling me to say, "We have an issue." Our payroll manager had been the target of a direct spear attack. They were going after her personal accounts, getting her to interact with emails and the accounts and type in new passwords and then using those passwords to access the sites that she knew she used for payroll and banking for our organization. We quickly figured that out, got into our bank accounts, and were able to stop several very large transactions before they were being processed to the other end. The moral to this story is you see something fishy happening, and I didn't mean to use the word fishy. When you see something strange happening on your personal accounts, there's nothing wrong with stopping by your IT department or giving them a call and just saying, "Hey, I'm seeing something fishy here. Should I be concerned?" Because your IT department's responsible for making sure your business is taken care of, and they need to know that you could be the target of a spear phishing attack. And lastly, my last story, probably the most disastrous. I was working at a plant. We had a loading dock. We also had voice over IP phones. For those of you that don't know what voice over IP phones are, those are phones that plug into your network wire that interconnect all of your computers instead of the traditional telephone line. One day, there's a UPS driver playing with that voice over IP phone. I don't know how many people walked by that driver because he was in a UPS uniform, UPS truck sitting out front. No one stopped him. No one talked to him. Finally, someone looked at him and said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, your phone's not working. I was trying to fix it so that I could call the shipping person." Put down the phone, jumped in his truck, drove away. The next day, the entire network infrastructure, all the computer systems of that organization had been cryptoed. They had all been encrypted. There were ransom notes everywhere, and it took the entire plant down for close to a week. As I've told you before, I don't believe in paying ransoms. I believe that just gives you to be the target of future payouts. We spent close to a week repairing all of those files and bringing the entire computer system back up and running. Business stayed running. We did not lose much data, and we did not pay the ransom. The bad part was because we were closed for so many days, a lot of hourly employees went home without a paycheck. A lot of people did not get a full paycheck that week, and there were times in that whole process where I debated about paying that ransom because it was getting costly to us and we weren't going to be able to fulfill the orders. All because someone was playing with a phone, someone was doing something they should not have been doing, and because they were wearing a uniform, no one stopped them and asked them. Of course, we had no camera footage. Of course, we had no record of any delivery or pickup that day. But we are fairly confident that the attack came from that area, that specific area of the plant. So the consequences of not taking this stuff seriously. I hate to say it, so starkly and bluntly. If you like your job, if you like your paycheck, change your password and know that you are always a target. I don't care who you are in your plant. I don't care how high or low you think you are in your business. You are a target because if they get a hold of you, they get a hold of other people. Start requesting multi-factor authentication. Don't tell your IT people I've said this, but once you have multi-factor authentication, your password doesn't need to be as strong as it used to be. Please don't tell them I said that, but it's the truth. Start calling your IT department saying, "Hey, can I have multi-factor authentication? What do I need to do to turn this on? I want this so that I can feel more secured." And know that next time you get a link, next time you get a strange email, next time you go to create a password and using the same one you've been using before, you might be the avenue the hackers are going to use that will eventually shut down your business and cause you to be looking for a new job, even though you didn't do anything wrong. So it's an important thing. Please reach out to your IT department, reach out to your security experts, ask for multi-factor authentication, do what you can to lock that up. And just want to take a minute and thank all of you for letting me geek out for a little bit there. I love talking about technology, and unfortunately, my fiance gives me really dirty looks when I start doing it at home. So I appreciate you guys letting me do it, and I will stop sharing my screen now and take any questions if anybody has any.
Sean, thank you very much. That was very good information, things that I heard our company talk about kind of peripherally or through emails or through directives. And you kind of went some background and gave me some more information as to why, they're doing it and why we can't be upset with them. One question that I do have, and
Sure.
it's probably more of a straight out answer, but just kind of curious. Our company mandates that we have certain things like our titles, our phone numbers on our email address signatures, so that when we send an email, people know what level we are, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So in doing that, is there any way to still comply with the company, but also comply with what you're saying as far as making things a little bit more secure?
Not easily. And unfortunately, one of the great battles the IT department has is always working with all the other departments like sales, executive management, and everything, and waiting for the day when we get to come back and say, "I told you so." So What I would say though, is there is the way to, when you're in your email, you can select what signature you want to send. And you could set up your email system so the first time it emails someone, it gives them that full signature, and then thereafter it gives them just a condensed signature with maybe just your return email address on it. In any case, the one thing I always have to remind myself is I am a servant of the powers that be at my organization. It's my job to advise them, hey, we might not want to put all this information on our titles. And then if they still decide to do it, we do it, and we just try to strengthen security in other ways. So trust me, I almost guarantee you that's a fight your IT guys are gearing up for or getting ready for, but there's not much you can do when the directive coming down is make sure you put it in.
Okay. That's kind of what I figured, but I figured I'd ask anyways.
Sure.
So Sean, got a quick question here regarding two-factor authentication.
Yes.
It occurs to me there are programs out there where you can get text messages via computer. Is it
Yes.
possible that a hacker could get your phone number and use one of those systems or one of those programs to get your text messages and thereby get that two-factor number? And the follow-up to that, does that mean that maybe authentication apps are a better way to go?
Okay. So that's a very grenade-like question because it involves many different things. So let me start off with one caveat that I think all of us need to remember. Unfortunately, if a hacker or crypto criminal wants to get access to you specifically, if you are their target and you are all they're thinking about day in and day out, they're going to get in. There's no way that you're going to be able to stop that. They are smarter. They have more resources. They have more time. It's going to happen. Just like if a thief really, 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 really wants into your house, they're going to do it. The problem that we're at is we want to make it as hard as possible for them to do it so that they get discouraged and go on to an easier target. So where we're talking about two-factor authentication, is it possible for someone else to, let me take one step back, Tom. In order to set up two-factor authentication, you need to provide that phone number stage 1 in your security profile. So you, for instance, Tom, I'm just going to use you as an example. If I'm setting up two-factor authentication for you, your very first step before anything else is you have to give the system your phone number. And then you have to verify that phone number, which means it's the phone that you have. If some other hacker out there comes up with a new phone number and wants your authentication messages to be sent to that new phone number, they're still going to need that first phone number to get access to the system and add that second phone number because you now have two-factor authentication enabled. The only other thing that they can do is something that we call in technology world of spoofing a phone. And that is taking every message that you get on your personal phone and mimicking that to their phone. That is not an easy thing to do. It's not extremely hard either. But again, we're talking about that deterrent. If someone is jumping through the hoops to do that, they really want to get you. The people installing ransomware, the people looking for the quick payout, people that we're encountered with more often than not are not the people doing that. We're talking about corporate spies. We're talking about theft of intellectual property. We're talking about a much different conversation. Yes, it's possible. No, it's not likely. Does that answer your question, Tom?
Can you follow up just a little bit with, and maybe I missed it in your presentation, authentication apps?
Sure.
Is that a useful tool? Is that something that we should consider?
Okay. Authentication apps can be a useful tool. And to be really quick, what an authentication app is, it's an application that runs on your mobile device. When you launch it, it's going to give you a string of numbers. And then the site that you're logging into is going to ask you to enter those numbers that the authentication program gave you. Usually they're reset every 30 seconds or so. And it is a quick and easy way to get a specific code to say, I have that thing that I own to prove that it's me. The reason I'm kind of hesitant and dragging my feet on this is a personal experience. I used an authentication app for a long time. I logged into my Amazon account, my Zoom account, my Evernote account, several other key accounts using that authentication app. I recently dropped my phone into Lake Michigan. When I got the replacement phone, none of those authentication tokens were on that new phone. So I was stuck jumping through more hoops, telling it, go back to my phone number, text me the number, and let me use that. It's not saying authentication apps are bad. It's not saying authentication apps are good. It's just another method. After dropping my phone in the lake, I will say you don't want just one secondary authentication method. You want to use your phone and an app. Or you want to have something that you can easily replace. A phone number, I can easily go to Verizon and get a new phone and plug that in and get access. So if you're using an app, make sure you have a backup, make sure you have a failover plan, make sure you have that phone number in there too. But I would not say that one is necessarily better over another, or that you should feel easy with just one or the other. Is that good, Tom, or did you want more information?
Great, thank you.
No, my pleasure.
I have another question for you on the numerous email accounts for different reasons or different
Sure.
sites. How hard is it to change existing email addresses in a lot of the apps or in a lot of the places, like for stores, for the rewards program, or for social media, that kind of stuff?
Generally, it's not tough. What gets more tough is, did I forget about one? That's where things get more touchy. I have actually been looking at switching over an email account and starting to divide things up. So one email account for social media platforms, one email account for my rewards programs, one email account for my financial institutions, and breaking everything up so that you don't get access to everything with one. It's not hard to go in there, and almost every account has a way to go into the profile and change the email address associated with that account. What gives me pause and what makes me worried is I've been doing this for decades now. How many accounts do I have tied to that email address, and how do I go find them all and change them all? And naturally, as I'm talking this out, my password manager makes that very easy. I use a password manager to manage all of my online accounts. I could easily just go in there and see which ones are using which email accounts and change those. So when you're going through an overhaul like that, I highly, highly recommend that you use a password manager to kind of keep track of your user profiles, your logins, your emails, and what passwords you're using on those accounts to keep them all straight.
Great, thank you very much. Anybody else have any questions? All right, anybody unmuting or looking like they're getting ready to unmute, I would like to thank you extremely a lot for presenting tonight. I know I picked up several nuggets of information and things to make me pause and go, I might need to be thinking about some things. So I greatly do appreciate you taking the time and the opportunity to do this. I believe Tom has your contact information. Is that correct?
He does. He does. Tom knows how to get a hold of me way more ways than I wish Tom did, but Tom knows how to get a hold of me.
All right. We'd like to send all of our presenters a gift card, a token of our appreciation for spending the time to put it together and then actually presenting for us. We do appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. I loved the chance to geek out. So thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody that was able to log on. Tell your friends and coworkers about it if they would like to go look at it. I'll be sending out a link here shortly with the recording of it. And then also remember, you're free to send all of our meeting links to friends, family, other people who might be interested. See if they would like to find out some more information about different things that we're speaking on. Yeah. And Sean, thank you very much. And thank you all for attending the first meeting of the 2021-22 COVID-filled ASQ calendar year. Thank you very much. And I hope everybody has a safe, healthy, and pleasant evening, week, and rest of your month. And we'll be seeing everybody again back in September.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Scott. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.